Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Dylan here. We have a major update from Senator Ted Cruz that you don't want to miss. He just came out and went scorched earth on the Democrats right now, and he's revealing the truth about what's really going on with Iran and how President Trump is repositioning the power dynamic of the entire world and of Iran. And he's really actually calling out the Republicans who are bashing Trump, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Candace Owens, even Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz have gotten into fighting matches, verbal fighting matches, and Ted Cruz is really sticking to his guns. He goes, no, I trust President Trump right now. And we are seeing that once again, everybody doubted Trump. Not everybody, but a lot of people doubted Trump. And guess what happened? Trump was right again. Wow. And if you watch my show, you know that I never doubted Trump. I just said, you know what? I think he knows. I know that he knows what he's doing. Because I just, who am I to judge what Trump is doing? So we're going to dive in. But before we do, we're going to read scripture because God comes first. Amen? Comment amen below if you believe God comes first. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Amen. So comment amen down below. And my brothers and sisters, congratulations to everyone who has begun investing in the stock market under President Trump. The stock market just hit a new all-time high, so we are celebrating. And this is the best time to get started. If you still want to learn, if you still want to get started, you can start with just a few dollars. We have a free offer linked below. You can sign up, join, or you can scan this QR code and get signed up in a few minutes. Just take out your phone, point it at the screen, click that link, and you can start investing with just a couple of dollars while Trump is still president. This is the best time to get in. It's very beginner friendly, and I even have a free investing tutorial linked in the description box for you to follow along. Okay guys, here we go. This is Ted Cruz saying this is short-minded and short-sighted. Let's tune in.
With great pleasure, super great pleasure, we welcome back to the show Texas Senator, Mr. Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz, as always, sir, great to see you. Look, Senator Thune said he was open to a wide-bodied plan. And I want to say, we got to sell last year's tax cuts a little better. That's one point. But let's put more in there. Let's show people. And, there's other stuff, too. All the fraud going on around the country, of which you are well aware, in Los Angeles and California and Minnesota and New York and so forth. That's got to be in there. The Pentagon needs a supplemental. That's got to be in there. The voting rights ID, I think, needs money to be implemented. That should be in there. So, okay, you want to do a skinny bill for DHS, fine, but come back with a wide-bodied bill, sir.
Larry, you and I agree on almost everything, almost all the time. On this, you and I agree 1,000%. You are exactly right.
Yeah.
I am making this case vigorously to my colleagues at lunch today, at lunch yesterday. I think I may have given your riff word for word verbatim yesterday at lunch.
Yes, sir.
And listen, right now, leadership's plan is to have the skinny anorexic bill that just has funding for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. I think that is short-minded, short-sighted, and right now they're talking about funding ICE and Border Patrol for 3.5 years at current levels. What I've argued to my colleagues is there are three mistakes that they're contemplating. Number one, we should fund ICE and Border Patrol for 10 years, not 3.5. The Democrats have gotten so radical they will not fund border security. We can do 10 years of funding. Number two, we should increase the funding. The reason we're having to do this is the Democrats are wildly unreasonable. They've defunded the Department of Homeland Security. What I'm arguing is we should increase the funding of ICE by 10%. So the result of Elizabeth Warren's temper tantrum is ICE funding went up 10%. But number three, what you just said, this reconciliation bill, we can pass with just 50 Republicans in the Senate. We don't need Democrats, which means we need a tax cut. And in fact, I argued for what you just said, indexing capital gains to inflation enormously pro-growth, would help with affordability. There's a lot of housing, for example, that is stranded because people have gains that the tax bill would be too high. And you have, say, an older couple whose kids are all grown. They don't need a house with 4 or 5 bedrooms in it, but they can't sell the house because they'd have a huge tax bill. That means the house is not on the market for a new married couple just starting a family. This is something we can do, we should do, and we shouldn't miss this opportunity to go big. Now, I'll tell you right now, that exchange you had with John Thune, John is a good friend of mine, but he was not agreeing with you on this reconciliation, and I got to tell you, there ain't going to be another reconciliation. That's telling you, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. This is the only train.
So Tucker Carlson was called out by President Trump. President Trump says, I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it is wonderful for Iran, #1 state sponsor of terror, so to have a nuclear weapon. So Tucker Carlson was actually coming out, slammed Trump. He says Trump is a slave to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, I haven't fallen out with him. I mean, I've known him for decades. I've always liked him. And I think anyone who spent time with him likes him. I feel sorry for him, as I do for all slaves. He is not free in this moment at all to do what he thinks is best for himself or his country.
What do you mean?
No, he's not free. And we learned that yesterday when Donald Trump announced a ceasefire, clearly with relief, and made its terms, or most of its terms, public. And then that ceasefire ended within 2 hours because Israel intentionally violated the terms by attacking not just southern Lebanon, but the city of Beirut.
So are you saying he's a slave to Benjamin Netanyahu?
I don't think it's as simple as he's under the control of Netanyahu. But, you know, you could summarize it that way and you wouldn't be totally inaccurate.
So he's and then now he's saying that Trump might be the Antichrist.
Now, a king who will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself.
Tucker's now using scripture to say that Trump might be Antichrist.
Above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. It's all ordained, in other words, preordained. He will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. So to a lot of Christians, or people who know the Bible well and believe in it, these predictions in both the Old and the New Testament, and there are others, seem to fit what we were watching. Here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods, and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist? Well, who knows?
That's a wild thing to say. And I do, Tucker Carlson, he was approached by Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz did not back down. Tucker's obviously a very hard-headed man. He's, very based in his beliefs. But Ted Cruz refused to bow down to Tucker, like a lot of people do. Take a listen.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So, okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. If you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said...
So, Ted Cruz, you got to give it to him. Going into the ring with Tucker, he's not an easy guy. Okay, we do have breaking news from President Trump. Let's tune in.
what are your top priorities now for the economy for the rest of the year?
To be honest, we are doing so well. You look at this. I hit the 50,000 Dow mark, which everyone said couldn't happen in 4 years. I did it in 1 year. I hit the 7,000 S&P mark in less than 1 year, which was a number, as you know, you reported it. They said if at the end of 4 years you hit those numbers, I did it at the end of a year.
One of you guys even messaged me saying that you are up almost $14,000 since investing in the stock market. Personally, I'm up over $30,000 just from investing into very low risk stocks. And you don't need a lot of money to get started. We actually do have a completely free app that you can sign up for right now with the link below. Or you can take out your phone, scan your QR code with your camera app, and click the link to get started. I also have an investing tutorial below, which you can follow along, and I go over everything that I'm buying. It's very beginner friendly and easy. You can start with just a few dollars. You know, we are seeing record-breaking highs. The stock market is hitting record highs right now. While Trump is still president, I'm going to be investing heavy into the market. I just personally trust President Trump right now. And if you've never invested before, don't worry. You can start with just a few dollars. Your future self, your children, or your grandchildren will thank you for taking this completely free step. Senator Ted Cruz, he just came out to talk about the war, the military operation that Trump is doing on his show. This is the Trump ordering naval blockade. Let's tune in.
Ben Ferguson with you, Senator. We've got a lot to talk about that's happened over the weekend. The news was not sleeping, and CENTCOM and the White House has now confirmed that the U.S. Navy is going to block ships entering and exiting the Iranian ports, and that has nothing to do with what's going on in California with Eric Swalwell on top of that.
Well, we had 20 hours of negotiations in Pakistan, and unsurprisingly, the Iranians were unwilling to move at all, in particular on nuclear weapons. They want a nuclear weapon, and I think they want a nuclear weapon because they want to be able to use a nuclear weapon. And President Trump, quite rightly, is insisting under no circumstances will the regime of Iran be allowed to have nuclear weapons. And so the president responded by ordering a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, shutting down every ship going into and out of the strait. We're going to break that down. We're going to talk about what that means for Iran, what that means for America, what that means for China and Europe, what's going to happen next. And then we're going to talk about poor Eric Swalwell, who seems to be on a train, falling off a cliff, on fire.
I can't wait to hear what Ted Cruz has to say about Swalwell.
Exploding, and it's all self-inflicted. And you know, Schadenfreude is not a pretty sentiment, but I guess people will be forgiven for just kind of shaking their head and saying, well, couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah. Fang you thought was the worst, the low. Nope, it wasn't.
Oh,
That's what we're learning today.
Fang was a high point for Eric Swalwell. He is looking back to the halcyon glory days of Fang. He wishes that's where he was today.
No doubt about it. We'll explain all of this story as it is continuing to unfold as we speak. Plus, he's was running for governor. We're going to explain that to you as well. So, Senator, you wake up Sunday and you get the news. The president's like, all right, we had these 20 hours of talks. They're not going well. We were about 95% of the way there. The only problem is that last 5% dealt with Iran getting nuclear weapons. We say no to that, and now the president is saying we're going to do this blockade with the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going to hold us or the rest of the world hostage anymore. This is a very bold move. I want to get your initial reaction to it.
Well, I have to say none of this, I think, is surprising. If you go back to our last pod on Friday, we laid out that the president had drawn a series of red lines. His red lines were, number one, Iran must have no enrichment whatsoever. Number two, Iran must give up all of its already enriched uranium. Number three, Iran had to agree to completely open the Strait of Hormuz. And actually, number four was Iran had to stop funding terrorism across the globe. Those were the demands. Those were the red lines. As you and I discussed on the pod, I emphatically agree with all four of those red lines. Those are the right things to insist upon. The president asked J.D. Vance and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff to go and negotiate. So they went to Islamabad. They negotiated with multiple officials from Iran. That they had Pakistan was hosting and was intermediating. Apparently the negotiations went 20 hours. I got to say, it was not surprising they didn't go anywhere. It was very interesting that J.D. Vance was the person asked to lead this, and that J.D. has been the most vocal opponent of military action against Iran. And so the fact that the president asked him to lead it, I'm not sure what the thinking was there, but it's an interesting statement.
That's actually a really good point. I never really thought about that. But J.D. Vance knows his duty. He's vice president to the commander-in-chief. You know, he's not going in there with his own agenda. That's actually really, really big contrast from what we've seen with Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Trump, could you imagine Trump sending Mike Pence to go do negotiations? Trump trusts J.D. Vance, and that's a huge, huge sign that Trump trusts J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance is not compromised. So that's really good, and actually a good point by Ted Cruz.
Here's what the president put out. He put out two lengthy truth socials, which said as follows. Iran promised to open the Strait of Hormuz, and they knowingly failed to do so. This caused anxiety, dislocation, and pain to many people in countries throughout the world. They say they put mines in the water, even though all of their Navy and most of their mine droppers have been completely blown up. They may have done so, but what ship owner would want to take the chance? There is great dishonor and permanent harm to the reputation of Iran and what's left of their quote-unquote leaders. But we are beyond all of that. As they promised, they better begin the process of getting this international waterway open and fast. Every law in the book is being violated by them. I have been fully debriefed by Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner on the meeting that took place in Islamabad through the kind and very competent leadership of Field Marshal Asim Munir and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan. They are very extraordinary men and continuously thank me for saving 30 to 50 million lives in what would have been a horrendous war with India. I always appreciate hearing that. The amount of humanity spoken of is incomprehensible. The meeting with Iran began early in the morning, lasted throughout the night.
Wow.
Close to 20 hours.
20-hour meeting? Holy moly, guys. Trump's working overtime. How do they have so much energy? I don't get that.
I could go into great detail and talk about much that has been gotten, but there is only one thing that matters, and this is in all caps. Iran is unwilling to give up its nuclear ambitions. In many ways, the points that were agreed to are better than us continuing our military operations to conclusion. But all of those points don't matter compared to allowing nuclear power to be in the hands of such volatile, difficult, and unpredictable people. My three representatives, as all of this time went by, became, not surprisingly, very friendly and respectful of Iran's representatives. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, Abbas Arghachi, and Ali Bagheri. But that doesn't matter, because they were very unyielding as to the single most important issue. And as I have always said, right from the beginning and many years ago, again in all caps, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And then here's the second truth social he sent. So, there you have it. The meeting went well. Most points were agreed to. But the only point that really mattered, nuclear, was not. Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. At some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in, all being allowed to go out basis. But Iran has not allowed that to happen by merely saying, there may be a mine out there somewhere that nobody knows about but them. This is world extortion.
Wow.
And leaders of countries, especially the United States of America, will never be extorted. I have also instructed our Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran. No one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passage on the high seas. We will also begin destroying the mines the Iranians laid in the straits. Any Iranian who fires at us or at peaceful vessels will be, again in all caps, blown to hell.
Wow.
Iran knows better than anyone how to end this situation, which has already devastated their country. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and radar are useless. Khamenei and most of their leaders are dead, all because of their nuclear ambition. The blockade will begin shortly. Other countries will be involved with this blockade. Iran will not be allowed to profit off this illegal act of extortion. They want money, and more importantly, they want nuclear. Additionally, and at an appropriate moment, we are fully locked and loaded, and our military will finish up the little that is left of Iran, President Donald J. Trump. Those are remarkable, detailed, and I think absolutely clear messages from the President of the United States. And I got to say, if you're an Iranian mullah, if you're the Ayatollah, you are not happy to read one word of that.
All right, we do have breaking news. Let's tune in. Markets are soaring under President Trump. Go figure.
On Wall Street, where the stock market is still soaring to new highs today, started out down, but then reversed course and has only gone up since then. The Dow at 421 points. This as oil continues to sell off from those highs made yesterday, almost $120 a barrel yesterday. It's hard to update the banners fast enough. Right now, we're looking at oil now down 19%. That's a drop of $18 a barrel, and it is now at $77 a barrel. This is just an incredible swing. Here was the president on what they're doing about those, what were high energy prices.
Wow. So the stock market is soaring. Oil prices are down, just like Trump said would happen. One of you guys even messaged me and saying that you are up over almost $14,000. My investments are up over $32,000 just from investing and taking advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And right now, if you want to start investing, we have a completely free offer right now. Click the link below and sign up in a couple of minutes, or you can take out your cell phone, open up the camera app, and point it at the screen. Follow the steps. It's very beginner friendly. And now I also have a free investing tutorial you can watch while you download the app. I'll have that link below as well. You can get started with just a few dollars. You don't need a lot of money to start. There's no hidden fees. There's no cost to this. It's completely free.
Yeah, and the president reiterated some of that as well when he called in to Maria Bartiromo on Fox Sunday on her show, Sunday Futures. And the transparency here, I do think, is one of the things that I just love about this president. Yep. And he said publicly the same things that he's saying privately. And he's making it clear that...
Which we never got with Biden. I can guarantee you that. I remember for weeks we'd be like, what is Biden doing? He's at anything.
What they're doing is unacceptable. Now, the question becomes, what's next? And this has also been part of the politics of this. You know, Democrats really honed in and obsessed over if Donald Trump hit the bridges and the tunnels and then hit the power infrastructure, the electrical grid, the power plants, that they were going to declare that he has committed war crimes. And by the way, we talked about this on Verdict. That's not true. It's inaccurate. But regardless, this does seem to be another, I've exhausted every measure possible before I go there. And if he does this the way he's saying he's going to do it, this is just another example of the president trying to give diplomacy, but also having accountability at the same time. You come to the meetings, you screw with us for 20 hours, you won't agree, fine, here's another step forward.
Look, this is a massive hammer to the Iranian economy. The vast majority of the revenue Iran takes in is from selling their oil. They sell the bulk of that oil to China. So this blockade, shutting down all of the ships, and there's an entire ghost fleet that has been built up of ships that have been taking Iranian oil to China. that ghost fleet will not be able to travel through the Strait of Hormuz, will not be able to carry any Iranian oil. It means there's going to be no Iranian oil being sold, no money coming in. It also means there have been reports that China might be sending weapons to Iran. I don't know if that's true or not. But by shutting down the strait, it also means that there are going to be no incoming material to Iran through the Strait of Hormuz. That puts enormous pressure on Iran. Now, it also puts a lot of pressure on China because they rely on that oil from Iran. They're not going to be able to get that oil from Iran anymore. And it puts significant pressure on Europe. I will say one of the amazing things that has happened in this military conflict is Europe has shown how much they have changed. And Western Europe, I think, is basically on a suicide pact. They have brought in such a massive Muslim immigration that the leaders in Western Europe are terrified to stand up even against an Ayatollah who is screaming death to America. They're terrified to stand up. I'm sure you've seen the meme online that shows Muslim countries standing with America, and it lists every Arab country in the Middle East, the Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain. They're all standing with us. And then Muslim countries opposing us. And you've got France and the United Kingdom and Germany and Italy. And Western Europe has not crowned itself in glory, to put it mildly. Eastern Europe has. Look, Eastern Europe, if you remember back when George W. Bush was president, Don Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense at the time, made a reference to old Europe, meaning Western Europe, and New Europe. And he said old Europe is a lot less relevant than New Europe, the Eastern European countries that were under Soviet domination and that are eager to stand with America. One of the most far-reaching consequences of this military action, the fact that our European allies said, we want nothing to do with America in this conflict, that's going to have consequences. That's going to have real consequences for decades. And those consequences are not good for Europe. And they're frankly not good. They're not good for the world. It is unfortunate. And I got to say, I was surprised to see even Italy joining that group saying, no, we won't stand with America on this conflict. But the Strait of Hormuz shutting down is going to put real pressure on Europe, real massive pressure on Iran, and very significant pressure on China.
Let's talk about
That's really interesting. So I wanted to get back to this whole reconciliation package and everything going on that's going on in Congress. This is just coming out today. Just for context, that Iran, all that stuff, that came out yesterday. So this is today.
That is leaving the station. If we want to do something big and bold before the midterm elections, we either do it now or we're going to end up missing altogether.
Well, I think I think he was open to it. But the point you're making, just so I understand it, you're saying forget about a skinny bill, fold the DHS into the larger, what I'll call wide-bodied bill with its tax reform and fraudulent spending and waste and so forth. We don't need two. We can just do it with one. I think that's your point.
It is, but let me explain, because he said he's open to doing a third reconciliation, and he said that many times. Here's the problem. You're not going to get 218 votes in the House for it. You're not going to get 50 votes in the Senate for it. What we need, and I've spent the last several months arguing we should do another reconciliation, but we need a tent pole. We need a policy that is big and important enough that it brings together a majority. You know what? Funding ICE and Border Patrol, that's the tent pole. There is no Republican in the House or the Senate who wants to vote against border security. That's how we get the votes. If you have instead a reconciliation bill that is a bunch of cats and dogs without Border Patrol there, you will not get 218. It never passes. And by the way, they know that what they're really saying is we ain't going to do it. We're just doing ICE and Border Patrol. And I think if we do that, it will be a massive, massive, massive missed opportunity.
Sir, so I understand your point now.
And the crazy thing that Ted Cruz actually pushed back on Tucker for, obviously Tucker is a huge Trump, I would call him a Trump hater now. He's in the group of Trump haters with Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Jones. Take a listen.
Growing up in Sunday school,
They're saying Tucker Carlson destroyed Ted Cruz. Do you guys think Tucker destroyed Ted, or do you think Ted destroyed Tucker?
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on. Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're
This is actually pretty entertaining.
throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yet nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the descendants
God's
of Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a democratic country that elected.
He's the prime minister,
right?
What?
But just like, America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
is there. Silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
That's what God was talking about in Genesis.
I do, but
that country's existed since when?
For thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70 years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is.
Wow. So, I don't know. That was a really, really interesting take. All right, we have breaking news. President Trump has caused a market rally. The S&P 500 has surged to a record high. If you begun investing, if you join my program, this is exactly what we are investing in. So take a listen.
Stock market just hit a record high. Isn't that something? Not just since the war began, but it's the highest it's ever been. Right now, it hit highs as that press briefing was ongoing. There hasn't just been a calm in the markets. Now there's actually a rally happening.
I think it shows the fundamental strength of the American economy.
Yep. President Trump is creating new opportunity for all of us. As you can see, my investments are up over $32,000 just from investing like Trump. I show you guys everything that I'm buying in the links below. If you want to start investing, you can start with just a couple of dollars. You can click the link below to sign up, or you can take out your cell phone, open up your camera app, and point it at this QR code. It will pop up a little link, click it, click Get Started, and follow the steps, join along. And if you have any questions, I made a completely free tutorial, which is also linked below too. Just click Get Started, follow all the steps. I'll see you in there. And then look at this. Ted Cruz delivers remarks on the Save America Act. He's talking about the importance of it, guys. Let's tune in.
Later this year, American citizens across the country will exercise one of their most valuable and sacred rights, the right to vote. A right that has been hard-earned and fought for from the founding generation of our republic to today. And how was the right to self-government, the right to vote, secured? It was secured by American colonists who rejected the royal edict and hurled tea into Boston Harbor, declaring no taxation without representation. It was secured by ordinary men who seized their muskets and fired the shot heard round the world at Lexington and Concord. It was secured by Continental troops who marched to the fields of Saratoga and the coastline of Yorktown repeating those immortal words of Patrick Henry, "Give me liberty or give me death." For nearly 250 years, Americans have cast their votes for leaders at every level, from local officials to state representatives to the President of the United States. Every member of this body is here today because we were elected fairly and honestly and given a mandate by our constituents to serve them here in Washington and to protect the liberties and freedoms our founders fought to preserve. The power of the ballot box determines the course of our nation, the history we are writing, and the freedoms that we continue to defend. And while no single ballot in isolation may seem decisive, together, the votes of the American people shape the course of our nation and the course of history. But it is worth remembering that our voting system did not begin as it exists today. When this nation was founded, the right to vote was limited, and over time, through debate, sacrifice, a bloody civil war, and constitutional amendment, the right to vote was quite properly expanded. The 15th Amendment prohibited denying the vote based on race. The 19th Amendment guaranteed women the right to vote. And the 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18. At every stage of our constitutional amendment process, the goal was the same: to ensure that the right to vote belonged to American citizens and that it was exercised with integrity. And while our system has evolved, one principle has remained constant. Elections reflect the will of the American people. For a right so sacred, for a privilege so hard fought, it is shocking, it is tragic, how neglected and vulnerable the protection of our elections has become. That is why I'm here today on this very floor, urging the members of this body to pass the Save America Act. It says that when you register to vote in a federal election, you must provide proof that you are a citizen of the United States, and you must provide photo ID to vote. In simple terms, that's it. This is not some radical, politicized, or weaponized piece of legislation designed to restrict Americans from voting. It is a common sense measure that protects the integrity of our elections by ensuring that American citizens and only American citizens are voting in them. Legitimacy in a democracy rests on two pillars. First, the mechanical integrity of the system to produce a valid result, and second, the public's confidence in that system. If either one fails, the system falters. If both fail, the system collapses. A system that cannot be trusted is a system that cannot govern. If you look around the world, between 2/3 and 3/4 of countries require some form of identification to vote. Why? Because it safeguards the integrity of their elections and reinforces public trust in their system. So it begs the question, why hasn't the United States fully embraced this standard? Well, for the last several months, we have heard claim after claim about how this legislation would somehow inhibit people from voting, that requiring identification is discriminatory, that the American people do not support voter ID. Mr. President, our Democrat colleagues are fond of bellowing into the TV cameras that photo ID to vote is Jim Crow. They tell us with mock earnestness. Now, I will admit, our Democrat colleagues should be experts in Jim Crow, because it was Democrat politicians who passed the Jim Crow laws. It was Democrat politicians who founded the Ku Klux Klan. It was Democrat politicians for decade after decade who enforced discrimination, separate but equal, poll taxes, and a host of other laws designed to prevent African Americans from voting. But do you know who has rejected their disingenuous claim that photo ID to vote is Jim Crow? The Supreme Court of the United States. Supreme Court of the United States, the state of Indiana, passed photo ID law requiring that you show a photo ID to vote. And a group of left-wing plaintiffs filed litigation challenging that. The case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. At the time, I was the Solicitor General of the state of Texas. I led a coalition of states before the Supreme Court defending photo ID to vote. And the left-wing plaintiffs made the same argument that our Democrat colleagues make today, that requiring photo ID to vote would somehow disenfranchise minorities. The Supreme Court, by a vote of 6-3, rejected their argument. The author of the majority opinion was John Paul Stevens. John Paul Stevens was one of the great liberals on the court. He was not a conservative. He was not on the right wing. He was the leading liberal for years on the U.S. Supreme Court. He rejected that claim, and he pointed out that when someone votes illegally, they are stealing the votes of legal voters. They are stealing the votes of American citizens. The Supreme Court explained that when photo ID laws have been implemented, minority participation in the election goes up, not down. And the Supreme Court explained that requiring photo ID enhances the integrity of an election and the integrity of democracy. Now, our Democrat colleagues don't want to acknowledge any of those facts. And I guess it's understandable, because the American people have heard their specious arguments and they have rejected them. Mr. President, 81% of Americans support requiring photo ID to vote. But my Democrat colleagues might say, what about African Americans? Well, about 3/4 of African Americans in the United States support requiring photo ID to vote. How about Hispanics? More than 80% of Hispanics in America support requiring photo ID to vote. How about Democrats? Here's an astonishing statistic. If you get out of elected office, if you ask a Democrat on the street, 70% of Democrats in America support requiring photo ID to vote. The one group that doesn't are elected Democrats in the United States Senate and the United States House. And by the way, the premise of their argument that minorities, if you require photo ID to vote, are not going to be able to vote is frankly insulting. Mr. President, I'm proud to be an Hispanic American. I've been an Hispanic all my life. You know what I've got in my wallet? I have a driver's license. I look at my colleagues across the way. I feel confident they have driver's licenses in their wallets as well. Hispanics are not morons. African Americans are not morons. And when you claim minorities can't figure out how to get a driver's license, well, gosh, what do you need a photo ID to vote to do right now in America? You need a photo ID to purchase alcohol or to purchase tobacco. You need a photo ID to gamble or purchase lottery tickets. You need a photo ID to go into a bar. You need a photo ID to get on a plane. You need a photo ID to rent a car. You need a photo ID just to drive a car. Not even rent a car, drive a car. You need a photo ID to apply for government benefits. You need a photo ID to enroll in college. You need a photo ID to open a bank account. You need a photo ID to check into a hotel. And I got to admit, this is my personal favorite. You need a photo ID, actually 2 photo IDs, to shovel snow in New York City. These are routine, everyday activities. The gallery is full. I feel confident everyone in the gallery who is not a child has a driver's license. And by the way, you wouldn't be admitted to the gallery if you didn't. And I feel confident every member of this chamber has done just about anything I listed well, except shoveling snow. I'm not convinced many of my colleagues have shoveled snow. Although they do shovel other things. The question is not whether Americans are bright enough to obtain photo ID. We know they can, and we know they do. The real question is, why would we not require the same level of verification for something as consequential and vital as voting? Are our Democrat colleagues saying voting doesn't matter? Or is it something else? Voting is not just another everyday activity. It rolls around every year, a few years, and it is the vehicle that protects the principles of our republic and safeguarding what matters. This legislation is necessary because there are individuals and systems that can undermine confidence in our elections if proper safeguards are not in place. And one of the most apparent ways that we've seen is through the masses of illegal immigrants that our Democrat colleagues let in through open borders over 4 years. During the Biden administration, more than 12 million illegal immigrants flooded into this country, the vast majority through my home state of Texas. Now, Mr. President, understand that was not an accident. That was not something the Democrats could not stop. That was their desired outcome. How do we know that? Because the instant President Trump was sworn into office for his second term, illegal border crossings plummeted 99% overnight. The Democrats said, no, Joe Biden can't secure the border. He needs new legislation. We now know that was a lie. It was objectively false, and they knew it was false. Well, if they could have secured the border for 4 years and they chose not to, they chose to let murderers into this country, they chose to let rapists into this country, they chose to let child molesters into this country, they chose to let gangbangers into this country, they chose to let terrorists into this country. We've had 4 radical Islamic terror attacks in the last 2 weeks. Why, Mr. President, would the Democrats choose to allow more than 12 million illegal aliens to invade this country? And I'm going to suggest the obvious reason. Because the Democrats look at those illegal aliens and they want them to cast vote for Democrats in federal elections. Why are the Democrats lined up and say, no, 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 under no circumstances should we test to see if you're an American citizen. Under no circumstances should we require photo IDs. You know, there was one activist a few years ago who filmed himself going into a D.C. polling place. D.C. polling place said, sir, what's your name? And he said, my name is Eric Holder. Now, this activist was not the Attorney General of the United States at the time. But yet D.C. handed him a ballot and said, Mr. Holder, please cast your vote. The Democrats are lined up in this chamber because they want our elections to be insecure. They want voter fraud to be rampant and to be easy. Ask yourself, do the American people have a difficult time buying a beer? Do they have a difficult time getting into an R-rated movie? Do they have a difficult time getting on an airplane? Well, yes, because the Democrats have refused to fund the TSA, and so there are long lines right now. But the lack of a photo ID is not an impediment that stops people from flying. This debate is about something very simple. Do our elections matter? Does our democracy matter? And boy, Mr. President, I got to say, that is a phrase the Democrats love. That they are defending democracy. It's interesting, their voice usually drops an octave when they say that. They clutch their pearls. And that's just the men. Defending democracy is what they say. Ask yourself, why are they not concerned at all about 12 million illegals who they let into this country voting illegally? I'll submit Occam's razor provides the simplest solution is usually the right one. The simplest solution is very clear. The Democrats in this body want illegals to vote for. They want power enough that they are more than happy to undermine democracy, to try to seize power. I get that from their personal self-interest, but it is not in the interest of the men and women they represent. It is not in the interest of the people of America. This bill is rightly called the Save America Act. And Mr. President, if we were voting on the merits of what was good for America, what was good for democracy, what was good for American citizens, the vote would be 100-0. Although I would note on the other side of this building at the State of the Union address that you were at, that I was at, we saw why our Democrat colleagues are so adamantly opposed to this bill. President Trump turned to the Democrats on the right side of the floor of the House, and it gave him an opportunity to demonstrate with absolute clarity. He said, if you agree, our first priority should be to fight for American citizens and not for illegal aliens. Please stand. And every single Democrat in Congress remained seated. Not a one of them. I would note, as we're on the floor today, of the 47 Democrats in this body, only one is here on the floor. But a whole lot more were on the floor during the State of the Union, and every one of them chose to remain seated because they could not support the statement that we need to support American citizens and not illegal aliens. That's why they oppose the Save America Act, because they want to be handed power over this country by the illegal aliens they let into this country. That's why we need to save America. And it's why I urge every member of this body to pass the Save America Act.
Wow, how powerful was that? I thought that was a really good speech. You know, it's kind of funny because I live in California. It's like my representative is Swalwell. Well, I guess he's former representative now, but I have like Swalwell. I think I have Cory Booker, and then I definitely know I have Schiff, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Gavin Newsom. These are all my people. People in Texas, you know, yeah, Jasmine Crockett's there, but you got Ted Cruz. Like, what a contrast between California and Texas. Now, President Trump just came out to address the nation. Let's tune in.
Rising market will do. Oh, it's going to get a lot higher. In fact, I told people 5 weeks ago, this is a great time to buy. I got criticized for that. Now they don't criticize me anymore. People should have listened. But
I did listen to President Trump. And thanks to him, my investments are up, and all of your investments are up huge today. As you can see, my investments right now are up over $32,000 right now. We have a completely free offer for you. If you want to start investing, if you want to join in on this economic boom of a lifetime, click the link below. Or you can now take out your phone and you can open up your camera app and scan this QR code, and it will pop up a link where you can download the app, and it is totally free. I'm not selling you on anything at all. This is just an app that I personally use. So you can scan that or click the link below to start investing. It's very beginner friendly. You can start with $5. You can even start with $1. So get signed up in a couple minutes. Your future self will thank you.